Once, in a small, quiet village, far away from the noisy city, there lived a young girl. She was not born into wealth or comfort. Her home was a tiny, fragile hut made of old wood and dried leaves. The hut was small, but it was the only place she could call her own. Every day she would wake up before the sun rose, feeling the cold wind touch her face and listening to the distant sounds of roosters crowing and water flowing from the nearby stream. Her life was not easy. She had lost her parents when she was very young. Her father had passed away due to illness, and her mother had died shortly after, leaving her all alone. She had a stepmother now who had taken over the house. The stepmother never liked her, and every day was a struggle for the girl. She would do all the chores from early morning until the evening, cleaning, fetching water, cooking, and looking after the animals. But no matter how much she tried, her stepmother always found faults in her work. The stepmother was cruel and harsh. She shouted at the girl over small mistakes and sometimes even hit her. She often said that the girl was useless and a burden to the house. The neighbors could hear the arguments sometimes, but most of them kept quiet. They were afraid of getting involved, and some thought it was none of their business. The girl, however, did not complain. She had learned to stay silent and strong. She would smile when strangers came and hide her tears at night. Despite all this cruelty, the girl had a kind heart. She would care for the animals in the small yard, feed the stray dogs, and even help neighbors when she could. She never let the harsh words of her stepmother take away her compassion. She loved to look at the sky at night, finding comfort in the stars, imagining that one day life would change for her. She dreamed of a better home, a place where she could be safe and happy. Every night she whispered her wishes into the darkness, hoping that someone, somewhere, might hear them. The hut she lived in was very small. There was barely enough space for her to sleep. A single thin mat was her bed, and a small fire pit in the corner was used for cooking. She had very few belongings, just a couple of worn-out clothes, a wooden bowl, and a small tin cup. But even with so little, she tried to keep her hut clean and cozy. She swept the floor every day and arranged the few items she had neatly. To outsiders, it may have looked humble, but to her, it was a home that she cherished. School was far away, and most days she could not go because she was busy with chores. She wanted to learn, to read books, and to discover the world beyond the village. But her stepmother did not care about her education. She often said that the girl would never need knowledge and that it was a waste of time. But the girl was determined. She would steal moments to read old, tattered books given by kind neighbors or teach herself letters and numbers from scraps of paper. Learning made her feel alive, and she clung to it like a lifeline. Life was a constant challenge. But the girl had learned to survive. She knew how to fetch water from the river without spilling it, how to cook simple meals, how to mend her torn clothes, and how to protect herself from the cold nights. She had become strong in ways many could not imagine. Her spirit, though tested by cruelty, remained unbroken. She often thought about her parents and how proud they would have been of her resilience. These thoughts gave her hope and courage to face each new day. The villagers knew about her struggle, but admired her courage silently. Some would secretly leave small gifts of food or clothes at her hut. She never asked for help, but her perseverance and hard work spoke louder than words. Children in the village sometimes played with her in the fields, laughing and sharing small joys. These moments, however short, brought a smile to her face and reminded her that life still had bits of happiness. The stepmother, however, grew increasingly bitter with time. She did not want the girl to find happiness or comfort. She believed that making the girl's life miserable was the only way to control her. She would constantly remind the girl of her worthlessness, and sometimes threatened to throw her out of the house. The girl learned to remain silent during these outbursts, lowering her head and doing her chores with trembling hands. She had no choice but to obey, but inside, she vowed never to let bitterness take her heart. Even with such hardship, the girl never stopped dreaming. She would watch the sun rise over the mountains and imagine herself standing on the hills, free and unafraid. She would look at the flowing river and see a reflection of her hope, believing that one day life would reward her patience and goodness. She believed in miracles, small ones at first, that could one day become life-changing. Every evening, after finishing her chores, she would sit outside the hut, feeling the cool breeze and listening to the distant sounds of nature. She would hum softly to herself, a song of hope that no one else heard. Her dreams were her private treasure, safe from the harshness of the world. She believed that if she kept her heart pure and her spirit strong, someone kind would come and notice her struggle. The days passed slowly, and life in the hut continued in its harsh rhythm. The girl faced hunger, exhaustion, and loneliness, yet she found small joys wherever she could. The chirping of birds, the warmth of sunlight, the smell of fresh earth after rain, these small things became her comfort. She learned to find beauty in simplicity and to be grateful for the little she had, even though the stepmother tried to crush her spirit. The girl's resilience grew stronger every day. She became clever in managing tasks, finding ways to save food, and protecting her few belongings. She learned to anticipate the stepmother's moods and act cautiously to avoid anger. Survival became an art, and the girl, despite her young age, mastered it with grace and courage. Through all of this, she never gave up hope. She knew that life had more to offer than hardship and cruelty. She believed that one day someone would see her worth and help her escape the harsh reality she lived in. The thought of that day kept her going, even when the nights were cold and the days seemed endless. She held on to hope like a lantern in the dark, guiding her through the challenges of each day. In that quiet village, surrounded by nature and hardship, the girl lived her days with courage and a heart full of hope. Her life had been difficult, shaped by loss and cruelty, but it was also marked by resilience, kindness, and dreams of a better future. She may have been poor, young, and alone, but inside she carried a strength that no hardship could ever take away. She was ready for the challenges ahead, unaware that life was about to bring a change that she could never have imagined. The girl had grown used to the small routines of her life, each day blending into the next. She would wake up before dawn, sweep the floor, fetch water, and tend to the animals. Despite the cruelty of her stepmother, she managed to hold on to hope. She believed that someday her life could change for the better. She dreamed quietly of a life where she could be safe, happy, free from fear. But that hope was about to be tested in ways she could never have imagined. One evening, after a long day of chores, the girl was resting by the fire, preparing a small meal for herself. Her stepmother had gone to the village to run errands and left her alone. The girl thought she could have a quiet evening, a rare moment of peace. She hummed softly to herself as she cooked, unaware of the storm that was about to come. When her stepmother returned, she was in a furious mood. Something minor had gone wrong in the village, and she wanted to take out her anger on someone. The girl tried to greet her stepmother politely, but it was not enough. The stepmother began shouting, her words sharp and cruel. She accused the girl of being careless, lazy, and useless. She blamed her for things she did not do and threatened her. With punishments that made the girl's heart race with fear, the argument escalated quickly. The stepmother's face turned red with anger, her hands trembling as she yelled at the girl. She stormed around the hut, knocking over small belongings, creating a mess. The girl tried to explain herself, but the stepmother would not listen. Every word she spoke seemed to fuel the stepmother's rage. The girl felt her chest tighten, her hands shake, and a fear unlike anything she had felt before took hold of her. Then, in a moment of uncontrollable anger, the stepmother did something unforgivable. She grabbed a burning stick from the fire and set parts of the hut ablaze. The flames spread quickly, engulfing the fragile structure. The girl froze, her heart pounding as smoke filled her lungs and fire licked the walls. She tried to put out the flames, beating at them with her hands, but the fire was too strong. Her few belongings were destroyed. Small treasures she had held onto so tightly vanished in an instant. The girl ran out of the burning hut, coughing and crying. She stumbled on the uneven ground, her body shaking from fear and cold. Her stepmother watched with a cruel satisfaction, saying words that cut deeper than any flame. She told the girl that she was worthless, that she did not belong in the house, and that she should leave immediately. There was no mercy in her eyes, only anger and resentment. With nowhere else to go, the girl wandered through the village streets, her feet sore and her body weak. She tried to ask for help, but most people avoided her, afraid of the stepmother or uncertain of what to do. She felt the weight of loneliness more heavily than ever. The world seemed dark, cruel, and unkind. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and her small frame shivered from the cold night air. She had never felt so helpless in her life. She found an old, abandoned shed near the edge of the village and decided to take shelter there for the night. It was not warm, it was not comfortable, and it smelled of dust and decay, but it was better than standing in the open. She curled up on the cold floor, hugging herself tightly, tears streaming down her face. The loss of her hut, her belongings, and the place she had called home felt unbearable. Her heart ached, not just from the physical pain, but from the realization that the cruelty she had endured had reached its peak. As the night passed, she thought about her parents and the life she'd once imagined. She remembered their smiles, the stories they used to tell, and the love they had given her. She whispered their names softly into the darkness, hoping for comfort, hoping for some sign that things could get better. Even in her despair, a tiny spark of hope remained, flickering weakly like the last embers of a dying fire. The next morning, the girl ventured out of the shed, her body sore and her mind heavy with worry. She looked at the ruins of her hut from a distance, smoke still rising from the charred remains. Her few possessions were gone, her small world reduced to ashes. She realized that she had lost everything she had worked for, everything that had given her comfort and a sense of security. She felt a wave of hopelessness wash over her, but deep inside, she knew she could not give up. She had survived this long. She had to find a way to survive still. She began walking through the village, searching for food, water, and shelter. Each step was a struggle. Each face she passed seemed indifferent. She avoided her stepmother, who was still shouting threats from the ruins of the hut. The villagers whispered among themselves, some expressing pity, others ignoring her completely. The girl felt invisible, as though the world had turned its back on her. Yet she pressed on, knowing that stopping would mean giving in to despair. For days, she wandered from place to place, trying to find something to eat, something to drink, and a safe place to rest. She begged quietly at the homes of villagers, accepting small amounts of food without shame. She drank from the river when no one offered her water. Her body grew weaker, her feet blistered, and her stomach ached from hunger. Each night she slept in open fields under the stars, hugging herself to keep warm. The nights were long and the cold bit at her bones, but she refused to cry in front of strangers. She had learned to endure silently, even when her heart felt broken. During this time, she also witnessed the kindness of strangers in small, quiet ways. A neighbor left a loaf of bread by the road for her to find. A child shared a piece of fruit. These gestures were small, but they reminded her that not everyone was cruel. They gave her a tiny sense of hope that there were people in the world who cared, people who might help her if they knew her story. She held on to these moments tightly, using them to fuel her determination to survive. Even in the face of such hardship, the girl did not lose her sense of self. She continued to dream, to imagine a life where she could be safe and happy. She thought of a home where she would not have to fear the wrath of a stepmother, where she could rest without worry, where her efforts would be appreciated and her kindness would be returned. These dreams became her guiding light, helping her navigate the harsh realities of life on the streets. She also learned to be careful. She avoided dangerous paths, stayed away from areas where she might be hurt, and made friends cautiously. Her experiences had taught her that not everyone could be trusted, but she also knew that giving up hope would be worse than any danger she might face. She clung to the belief that her life had value and that someone, somewhere might notice her struggle and offer help. As the days passed, she grew stronger in her resolve. Each challenge, each hardship, each moment of hunger or fear became a test of her spirit. She survived not because the world was kind, but because she refused to let cruelty and misfortune define her. She moved with quiet determination, always searching for a way to change her fate, always hoping for a miracle that could turn her life around. Her stepmother, meanwhile, remained in the village, seemingly satisfied with the destruction she had caused. She believed she had won, that the girl's spirit had been broken. But the girl's heart remained unbroken. She had faced cruelty before and had survived. She had endured hunger, cold, and loneliness, and she had found strength she did not know she possessed. She believed that life still had more to offer and that a new chapter was waiting. Even if it seemed impossible at that moment, in the midst of this despair, the girl's mind remained sharp. She began planning how to survive each day, thinking of small ways to find food, stay safe, and keep moving forward. She observed the world around her, learning which paths were safest, which villagers were kind, and where she might find temporary shelter. Each decision was crucial, each step a delicate balance between risk and survival. She had become clever out of necessity, using her wits to navigate a world that had shown her nothing but hardship. Even in the darkest moments, she never lost her heart. She helped animals, comforted children she met along the way, and spoke kindly to strangers who needed encouragement. Her compassion remained intact, a testament to her inner strength. She refused to let the cruelty of her stepmother and the harshness of life make her bitter. Instead, she carried hope like a secret flame, believing that someday her life would change. That kindness would find her, and that she would be safe at last after being thrown out of her hut. The girl wandered through the village and beyond, unsure of where she could go or how she would survive. Each day was a struggle for food, water, and shelter. She learned to move quietly, avoiding people who might scold or harm her. Even though her body was weak from hunger and exhaustion, her spirit remained unbroken. She believed that she had to keep going, that giving up was not an option. She found small moments of relief wherever she could. Early in the morning, she would sit by the river, watching the water flow, imagining that it carried her troubles away. Sometimes she would pick fruits that had fallen from trees or gather roots and vegetables from the fields. These were small meals, but they kept her alive. She learned to appreciate the little things, understanding that survival depended on patience, resourcefulness, and careful observation. Sleeping was difficult. She avoided crowded areas and stayed away from the homes of strangers who might not be kind. Most nights she slept under large trees or in abandoned structures, curling up to keep warm. The nights were cold, and sometimes she could hear wild animals moving nearby, but she tried not to show fear. She had to stay alert, for her safety depended on it. Each night, she whispered words of hope to herself, repeating that one day her life would change, that someone would come to help her. The villagers, while aware of her situation, remained distant. Some left food secretly near the edge of the paths, small acts of kindness that the girl treasured. Other children would smile at her or share scraps of food. She held on to these small gestures, remembering that not everyone was cruel, and that kindness could still exist even in a world filled with hardship. These moments gave her hope and reminded her of the goodness she still believed in. Her body grew stronger in unexpected ways. The constant walking, climbing, and working to survive made her limbs resilient. She learned to find safe places to rest, to keep her belongings secure, and to navigate the village without being noticed by the stepmother. Her mind became sharp, noticing patterns in people's behaviors and the rhythms of daily life in the village. She had no formal education, but she had learned survival, and in some ways, that was even more valuable. Even with the constant struggle, she never lost her compassion. She helped animals when she could, sharing her small portions of food with stray dogs and cats. She comforted children she met, offering smiles and gentle words. Despite her own suffering, she refused to let bitterness enter her heart. She believed that kindness, even in small amounts, could make the world a better place and that her actions mattered. Days turned into weeks. She faced hunger, rainstorms, cold nights, and the occasional cruelty of people she encountered. Yet she never stopped moving forward. She would wake early, gather food, and find water. She would carefully plan her routes, avoiding dangerous areas and places where she might be scolded or attacked. She had learned the art of cautious living, balancing risk and survival. Each day was a challenge, but she met it with determination and quiet courage. Her thoughts often returned to the life she had lost. She remembered the small comforts of her hut, few possessions she had cherished, and the dreams she had quietly nurtured. She grieved for these losses, but did not let them paralyze her. Instead, she used them as motivation to keep moving forward, believing that one day she could have a home again, a place where she could feel safe and valued. As she wandered, she also began noticing small opportunities. She learned where she could gather fruit safely, which streams had clean water, and which fields were less likely to be patrolled by people who might chase her away. Her intelligence and observation became her tools for survival. She learned to predict the movements of villagers, animals, and even the weather. Each small success in finding food or shelter strengthened her belief that she could endure this difficult time. Despite the hardships, she continued to dream. She imagined a life where she could read books, learn new things, and be appreciated for her efforts. She imagined a home filled with warmth, laughter, and safety. These dreams were her lifeline. They kept her moving even when her body ached and her stomach growled with hunger. She held on to the belief that the world had more to offer than pain, that kindness and opportunity could still find her sometimes. The girl would encounter moments that tested her faith in humanity. People ignored her, scolded her, or shooed her away. Hunger and thirst gnawed at her relentlessly. She faced cold rain and harsh winds. But each time, she reminded herself that she had survived worse and that she could survive again. Her resilience became her defining trait, a quiet strength that carried her through even the darkest moments. Along the way, she met others in need, people who were also struggling with poverty and hardship. She shared what little she had, offering food or warmth when possible. In return, she sometimes received help, advice, or companionship. These encounters reminded her that life was not only about suffering, it was also about connection, empathy, and the small ways people could support each other. She learned that even in suffering, there could be moments of light. She also learned to care for herself in new ways. She found herbs to soothe minor injuries, washed herself in streams when she could, patched her clothes with whatever materials she found. Her survival skills grew rapidly. She became more confident in her ability to navigate the world despite her vulnerability. She realized that knowledge, even if not from a school, could empower her to face challenges with courage. The girl's hope never wavered. She would lie under the stars at night, imagining the life she longed for. She thought about the people who might one day help her, the opportunities that could change her life, and the dreams she still had for her future. These thoughts became a source of strength, a reminder that despite everything, life still had the potential for goodness and change. As time passed, the girl's story became one of quiet endurance. She survived through cleverness, compassion, and an unwavering belief that her life could improve. She faced danger, hunger, and loneliness with determination, knowing that giving up would mean losing everything. Every day was a step toward survival. Every small success, a victory. She held on to hope like a precious gem, careful not to let despair extinguish it. Though her surroundings were harsh, the girl's spirit remained resilient. She continued to help others, find small joys, and dream of a better life. Each day she moved forward with courage, navigating a world that had been cruel, but not entirely unkind. She survived, not because the world made it easy, but because she refused to let her circumstances define her. Her journey was a testament to human strength, compassion, and the power of hope, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. In the end, the girl's days on the streets became a story of quiet heroism. She endured hunger, exhaustion, and fear, yet she never lost her heart. She learned to navigate a cruel world with intelligence, kindness, and courage. And though she did not yet know it, her perseverance and resilience were preparing her for the moment when life would change, when help would arrive, and when the world would finally recognize the strength and goodness she had carried through her trials. The girl's life had become a cycle of survival, each day bringing new challenges. Hunger and exhaustion were constant companions, and yet her heart remained unbroken. She wandered the streets, fields, and edges of the village, always searching for food, water, and a place to rest. The nights were long and cold, and she often slept in abandoned sheds or under the protection of large trees. Her body was weary, but her spirit remained strong, fueled by the hope that one day someone would notice her struggle and offer help. One day, as she wandered near the outskirts of the village, a car approached slowly along the dirt road. It was unusual to see such a vehicle in this quiet area, and her curiosity was piqued. From the car stepped a man who looked different from everyone she had ever seen. He was dressed neatly, his demeanor calm and confident. The girl instinctively stepped back, unsure whether to approach or hide. She had learned to be cautious around strangers. Knowing that not all people could be trusted, the man walked slowly, observing the surroundings with a careful eye. He seemed to notice the small details that others overlooked: the broken fences, the muddy paths, and the fragile homes. As he moved closer, his gaze fell on the girl. She was sitting by the side of the road, her clothes worn and torn, her hair messy, and her eyes reflecting both fear and quiet strength. There was something in her that caught his attention, something beyond her appearance of poverty and struggle. He approached slowly, speaking in a gentle tone. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice calm and sincere. The girl instinctively took a step back, unsure of whether to trust him. She had been hurt before, ignored and mistreated, and the idea that someone could genuinely care felt foreign. Yet there was something in his eyes that seemed different, a sense of kindness and patience that she had not encountered in a long time. "I'm fine," she replied softly, her voice trembling slightly. She avoided looking directly at him, unsure of what to say or how to respond. Her life had taught her caution, and she was not about to reveal too much too soon. She had learned to protect herself, to remain silent when necessary, and to trust only when there was proof of kindness. The man did not insist or pressure her. Instead, he simply sat nearby, maintaining a respectful distance. He observed her quietly, as if trying to understand her without intruding. After a few moments, he spoke again, gently, without judgment. "You don't look well. Do you have a place to stay?" The girl hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. Her past experiences had taught her that people could be cruel or indifferent, and she had little reason to believe this stranger would be different. I don't," she admitted finally, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked down at her hands, ashamed of her tattered appearance and fragile state. She had spent so long hiding her vulnerability that admitting it to a stranger felt risky, yet somehow necessary. There was a quiet hope in her admission, a faint wish that this person might help. The man nodded, understanding the unspoken plea in her words. He did not offer pity, nor did he judge her for her situation. Instead, he simply said, "I can help you. You don't have to be alone." The words were simple, yet they carried a weight that the girl had not felt in a long time. She felt a mixture of disbelief, fear, and hope. Could it really be possible that someone wanted to help her without expecting anything in return? She looked at him carefully, searching for any sign of insincerity. When she found none, she took a hesitant step closer. Her trust was cautious, built slowly over time, but something about this man felt different. He did not rush her, did not demand explanations or obedience. He simply offered help, and that alone was enough to stir hope in her heart. The man extended his hand, not to take, but to guide her gently. "Come with me," he said softly. "I can give you food, a safe place to rest, and a chance to start again." The girl hesitated for a moment, glancing back toward the village and the memories of her past suffering. She thought of the nights spent hungry, the days spent wandering, and the fear that had accompanied her every step. She knew that accepting help could change everything, but she also feared disappointment. Finally, with a deep breath, she took his hand. It was a small act, but it represented a leap of trust she had not taken in years. The man smiled gently, encouraging her with his calm presence. Together, they walked to the car, and as she sat inside, she felt a strange mixture of fear and relief. For the first time in a long time, she felt that someone saw her not as a burden, but as a person deserving of care and opportunity. The ride was quiet. Not because of awkwardness, but because both were absorbing the significance of the moment. The girl watched the passing scenery, the fields, and the trees, feeling a cautious optimism growing inside her. She realized that this encounter could change the course of her life, that the kindness of a stranger could open doors she had never imagined. When they arrived at a large house, unlike anything the girl had ever seen, she was overwhelmed by the size, cleanliness, and warmth of the place. She had lived in a tiny hut, in the streets, and in abandoned structures. But never had she imagined a place like this could exist. The man led her inside, showing her a small room prepared for her. It was clean, comfortable, and safe, stark contrast to the life she had endured. She felt a mixture of awe and gratitude, unable to fully express the emotions swirling inside her. He provided her with food, warm clothing, and a chance to rest. The girl ate slowly, savoring each bite, as if tasting safety and care for the first time in her life. The warmth of the house, the kindness of the man, and the sense of security were overwhelming. She had survived hunger, cruelty, and fear. But this moment felt like the beginning of something new, something she had longed for but never truly believed could happen. Over the following days, the man continued to observe and support her, never pushing her beyond what she could handle. He listened to her story patiently, learning about the hardships she had faced, the cruelty of her stepmother, and the struggles she had endured. He did not judge her, nor did he offer empty sympathy. Instead, he provided practical support, helping her find the strength to begin rebuilding her life. The girl began to feel a sense of normalcy for the first time. She could rest without fear, eat without anxiety, and dream without limits. She started to regain confidence in herself and in the world around her. The kindness she had received gave her a new perspective, showing her that people could be good, that life could be generous, and that hope was not foolish. In this safe environment, the girl slowly began to heal. Her body regained strength, and her mind began to feel lighter. She explored the house, finding comfort in its warmth, beauty, and order. She learned that her efforts mattered, that she could contribute, and that her dreams were valid. She began to imagine a future where she could live without fear, where her days would be filled with learning, growth, and kindness. The billionaire's help was not just charity, it was a lifeline. He ensured that she had opportunities to learn and grow, that she could gain confidence and skills to shape her own future. He provided guidance, care, and encouragement, helping her navigate the world with dignity. The girl began to understand that help could be empowering, not just temporary relief, and that her life could be transformed through support, compassion, and belief in her potential. The encounter marked a turning point. The girl, who had faced unimaginable hardship, began to see a future filled with possibilities. She realized that her resilience had brought her to this moment, that her courage had allowed her to endure, and that kindness could change her life in ways she had never imagined. She felt gratitude, hope, and a growing sense of confidence. The world, which had seemed harsh and unyielding, now appeared full of opportunities, care, and new beginnings. In the quiet moments, she would reflect on the journey that had brought her here. She thought of the days spent in hunger, the nights spent in cold and fear, the loneliness that had weighed heavily on her heart. She remembered the small acts of kindness along the way and the unwavering hope that had sustained her. Now, with safety, support, and the possibility of a better life, she began to understand that her struggles had not been in vain. They had prepared her for the moment when life would finally offer a chance to start anew. After the girl was taken in by the billionaire, her life slowly began to transform. The first days were filled with small comforts she had never experienced before: warm food, a clean bed, and safety. These simple things, which many people took for granted, were new and precious to her. She savored each moment, realizing how much she had missed basic security and care. The world she had known was harsh and cruel, but now she felt the possibility of happiness and stability. The billionaire did not rush her or demand anything from her. He allowed her to adjust to this new life at her own pace. He provided her with clothes, shoes, and other essentials, making sure she had everything she needed. But more than material things, he offered understanding, patience, and guidance. He listened when she spoke, asked about her past with care, and encouraged her to dream about the future. This support began to rebuild the girl's confidence. had been eroded by years of hardship. The girl began to explore her new environment. The house was large, but she learned to navigate it carefully. There were quiet corners where she could read, spacious rooms where she could rest, and gardens where she could enjoy the sun. She discovered a library filled with books that fascinated her. Reading became a source of joy and knowledge. She read stories of people who had faced challenges and triumphed, stories that inspired her and gave her hope for her own future. Education became an important part of her life. The billionaire arranged for her to receive lessons, helping her improve her reading, writing, and arithmetic. Learning, which had been denied to her by the cruelty of her stepmother, now became a path to empowerment. The girl embraced education eagerly, hungry for knowledge and eager to grow. Each lesson she learned made her feel stronger and more capable, reinforcing the belief that her life could be different and better. Her days were gradually filled with structure, purpose, and hope. She helped around the house, not because she was forced to, but because she wanted to contribute. The tasks were small at first, like helping in the kitchen or watering the garden. But each task gave her a sense of accomplishment. For the first time, she felt that her efforts were recognized and appreciated. She began to understand that her life could have meaning beyond mere survival. The billionaire also made sure she received proper care and attention. Medical checkups ensured that she recovered fully from the hardships she had endured. Her nutrition improved, her physical strength returned. Her appearance began to reflect the care and love she was receiving. She felt healthier and more energetic, which allowed her to focus on learning and exploring new opportunities. Each improvement in her well-being was a small victory, reminding her that life could indeed be kind. Over time, the girl developed a bond of trust with the billionaire. She saw that his help was genuine, that he cared about her future and not just providing temporary relief. This relationship gave her a sense of security she had never known before. She learned to open her heart slowly, understanding that it was safe to rely on someone who had proven consistent kindness. Her trust grew as she realized that support, encouragement, care could truly exist in the world. With her basic needs met, she began to dream bigger. She imagined a future where she could pursue her passions, learn new skills, and one day help others who were suffering. The experiences of her past gave her empathy and insight, and she wanted to use that knowledge to make a positive difference in the world. She began to plan small steps toward her future, each goal giving her purpose and motivation. She also began to reflect on the past, with a sense of understanding rather than bitterness. The cruelty she had faced from her stepmother and the hardships she endured had shaped her resilience. She realized that while the experiences had been painful, they had also taught her strength, patience, and compassion. Instead of allowing her past to define her negatively, she chose to let it guide her toward becoming a stronger, wiser person. Socially, she started to connect with people around her. She was introduced to staff, friends, and family members who were kind and supportive. She learned to communicate, express herself, and trust others again. Each positive interaction built her confidence and social skills, helping her feel more comfortable in a community. She began to enjoy conversations, laughter, and companionship, things that had been absent for so long. The girl also began to explore her talents. She had always been creative, finding joy in small arts and crafts during her limited free time as a child. Now, with access to materials and guidance, she could develop these skills. She discovered a love for painting and storytelling, using these outlets to express her experiences, emotions, and hopes. Through creativity, she not only entertained herself, but also started to share her perspective with others, inspiring empathy and connection. Her growth was steady and continuous. She became disciplined, balancing her education, creative pursuits, and responsibilities around the house. She learned the importance of planning, perseverance, and self-care. The skills she developed gave her confidence in her ability to handle challenges, making her more independent and resilient. Each day, she became more aware of her potential and more motivated to achieve her dreams. The billionaire remained a steady presence, providing guidance without controlling her life. He encouraged her to explore her interests, make decisions, and think critically. His approach allowed her to gain self-reliance while still feeling supported. She learned that help could empower rather than restrict, and that true kindness respected the individuality and potential of a person. As months passed, the girl began to envision a future far different from her past. She thought about helping children who faced hardships similar to hers, sharing the kindness and opportunities she had received. She imagined creating a life filled with learning, creativity, compassion, and independence. The contrast between her past suffering and her current possibilities filled her with gratitude, determination, and a renewed sense of purpose. Her story became one of hope and transformation. From the streets, hunger, and fear, she had moved into a life of safety, learning, and opportunity. The challenges she had faced had prepared her to appreciate, embrace, and utilize the help she received. She understood the value of resilience, the importance of trust, and the power of kindness. Her journey was far from over, but she now had the tools, guidance, and confidence to shape her own destiny. In the quiet moments, she reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the nights of fear, the days of hunger, and the moments of despair. She thought about the small gestures of kindness she had encountered along the way. And she realized that those moments, combined with her own courage, had led her to this turning point. Her life was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, the impact of compassion, and the power of hope, even in the darkest circumstances. The girl's journey was no longer defined by suffering, but by growth, learning, and possibilities. She had survived hardships that could have broken anyone, yet she emerged stronger, kinder, and more determined. Her life had been transformed not only by the billionaire's help, but by her own courage, resilience, and willingness to hold on to hope. She understood that her future was hers to shape, and with the right support and determination, she could achieve a life of dignity, happiness, and purpose. Through this transformation, she learned that kindness could truly change lives, that opportunities could open doors previously unimaginable, and that resilience in the face of hardship was a powerful force. Her journey from the burning of her hut in the streets to safety, education, and hope became a story of inspiration. She was no longer just a girl who had suffered. She was a young person with potential, dreams, and the means to create a future full of promise and compassion.